Hey everybody, Elizabeth Nader back with you, Jersey First TV and the Nader Narrative. New Jersey has a problem. We are dubbing it New Jersey's Whale Gate. It's heartbreaking what is happening on our shores. And I'm sure all of you have heard some of this. Many of you are very upset. Since December, 25 dead whales have washed up along the New Jersey shore. It may be more than that, and we don't even know what hasn't washed up. But we're continuing to see not only dead whales, we've seen dead dolphins washing on shore. What's different? What's changed? What's going on here? The only thing that's really changed is the work that's being done out in the ocean, the sonar work that's being done to prepare for offshore wind farms. So are we sacrificing these valuable creatures? Are we sacrificing marine life and praying at the altar of climate change and renewable energy? Why is there not more outcry from Trenton? You won't believe when I tell you what Trenton says about this, what Governor Murphy says, what his people say. But we've got great people who are fighting hard to protect our marine wildlife. And really, it's not just that, it's tourism as well. It's the people that live on the shore that benefit from all the tourists coming. It's our beautiful shorelines. There's so many aspects of this that we should be concerned about as New Jerseyans, and really anyone on the East Coast and anyone that cares about protecting our environment truly. So today we want to focus on this. We want to talk about what's going on, reveal some truths to you, and arm you with some details that hopefully you can reach out to your legislators and let them know enough already. We need to do something about this. So I am happy to bring today on the show two great people who are dedicating so much of their time to focus on this issue and solve it. And I want to welcome them now, Cindy and Jonah. I have Cindy Zipf, who is the Executive Director of Clean Ocean Action since 1984. She's a graduate of University of Rhode Island with a degree in geography and marine affairs. And obviously, Cindy dedicated your life to being vigilant against any of those who would threaten our ocean. And then we have also Jonah Smith, former engineer and chemical engineer, and grew up here in Manhattan close by, have worked all over the world, and now you live in Ventnor with your wife on the beach. You have been active in Protect Our Coast NJ, and we are aware of a signature campaign you have that's collected to date 250,000 signatures about this issue. So both of you, welcome. Cindy, I'm going to start with you. You've been in the news talking about this. You've been on the shore. There's been a lot of outrage. My first question to you is, what do you think is causing this uptick in deaths of these beautiful creatures?
Yeah, well, I thank you for the opportunity to shed some light or raise questions. Actually, we really don't know. There's just this extraordinary grim record, which is increasing, seemingly every week. We get more and more, and we just don't know what the cause is. And so we've, raised some concerns that, yes, that there may be a connection, possibly a connection to the 11 companies that have authorization to conduct pre-construction activity offshore. And many of the boats have been going out up to 4, 5, 6 at the same time, doing their sonar and other kinds of activity. So we don't know exactly what's happening. This is very unusual. No one's ever remembered in the history of time this many whales washing up on our beaches and dolphins. There are wash-ups that happen, of course. Sure. But to this magnitude, this number, 13, 14, in just 3 months is just unprecedented. And again, it's a very grim record, and we want to find out what's going on.
Exactly. I mean, something's changed, right? So we should all want to look into this. Jonah, I want to show an image here, and I want to talk a little bit about what Cindy mentioned. we have this preparatory work going on to bring in these wind farms, right? And part of that is the sonar testing. And this, I know this image has small type, but everyone can see here it says seismic air gun blasting. I want everyone to sort of look at this image from the standpoint of the ships and what they're doing to blast the sonar to the base of the sea in order to map that out. And of course, we've got the marine life in between the two. What light can you shed as an engineer on this process, and why could this potentially be what's killing these animals?
Well, it's not that difficult for the layperson to understand. Whales, dolphins navigate and live by communicating via sonar, via sounds. Sound travels through water tremendously further distances than it does in air. And so picture yourself being a whale roaming around in an area where you're normally traveling with your friends and you're communicating as you always do. And now suddenly there are strange sounds, sonar sounds, loud sounds, pulsating sounds, bouncing off of different structures, things you've never heard before. The postulation is that whales can become disoriented, they can become dizzy, they can become confused, they can then take actions which aren't normal. And as much as there are whale, quote unquote, experts out there, nobody knows the mind of a whale. Nobody knows exactly what's going to happen when they do get confused. They can surface, they can separate from their friends and their pods, they can beach themselves, they can try to flee, they can run into ships. All this business about the whales saying, the environmental group saying they were, these whales show signs of ship strikes. Well, I think one of our members said it, well, if you found me dead on the side of the road and the police said, well, the cause of death was that he was hit by a car, was that sufficient? Or what was he doing in the middle of the road? How did you get there? Why were you there? Same thing here. Yeah, they might have been hit by a ship or other reasons. We just don't know. So to me, as an engineer, as Cindy said, all this started happening in earnest about 6 months ago with these ships. You could tell. I mean, I live right on the shore. I can see them offshore. I take pictures of the ships all the time. And then in those few months, all these whales that have never washed up on shore virtually ever here before, Atlantic City, Ventnor, Strathmere, suddenly, I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire, cause and effect. Yeah. And as Cindy said, we don't know, but don't you think we should stop and try to confirm it one way or the other, at the very least?
Yeah, well, it feels like there's some common sense here. And, Cindy, Jonah talks about, well, if you found me on the side of the road, I get hit by a car. I think one of my questions would be, well, why did you get hit by the car? Yeah. Were you disoriented? Were you pushed in front of the car? Cindy, you've been protecting our shores for so long. As we look at this image and think about the difference between a ship simply passing through, and we've had that for forever, right? For a long time. Ships passing through where whales are versus doing this work, messing with the sonar. There's a big difference there, isn't there? I mean, aren't we actually potentially causing a situation where these whales can no longer avoid the ships?
Yeah, well, I think it's important that we clarify that there's a difference between seismic and sonar. There's, that seismic testing is usually associated with the offshore oil and gas industry, which we've all together have, opposed for decades and decades. And in fact, because of a bipartisan work for all these decades, we don't have any offshore oil and gas rigs out in our ocean. And we don't have liquefied natural gas facilities. And so, it's important to make that distinction. Sure. But, it's not Clean Ocean Action that has identified the sonar that's being done as a cause for concern. The National Marine Fisheries Service evaluated their incidental harassment authorizations and gave these industries a combined over 63,000 incidental harassment authorizations, which means at the level B take. So that is harassment. That's cause for the animals to stop feeding, stop breathing. As Jonah said, move away. In moving away from the sound, the sound is being penetrated into the sea floor to try to determine where to put the monopiles. So could the animals be moving away from the depths of the ocean and moving further up to the surface to get away from the noise, making them more susceptible to getting hit by ships? Whatever, we do know that the National Marine Fisheries Service has identified this type of activity as causing harm through harassments. So,
as did the U.S. Navy.
Yeah.
The U.S. Navy has a study that shows that sonar was
True.
It was a factor in harassment of whales. Absolutely, it's known.
Right. And it's not just the whales, right? And Cindy, we have so much other rich marine life, and we don't really know, do we? And I want to ask you, in terms of the dead whales washing ashore, and I believe there was a dolphin or two, just one dolphin at this point.
Quite a few.
Oh,
Quite a few. Okay.
Several.
So we know that they use sonar. We know that could be, the issue, but would we not assume that there potentially are dead ones on the ocean floor, or other marine life that's being affected in a way that we can't see and we can't prove yet until we see the long-term effect?
Sure. I mean, that's absolutely, what these activities will do, is a big question. And there has been some science underway, but, we're just beginning to really document what's going on out there. I mean, we do have such a rich ecosystem. There's 33 species of whales and dolphins that call our area home during certain periods of the year, during seasons. We have, lots of hundreds of species of fish and birds, and, lots of thousands of invertebrates and other critters that live offshore. And how these all play in this very intricate balance really, is something that we all enjoy and we all, benefit from. So it's really important that we understand, what will happen to marine life. And, I just want to clarify that Clean Ocean Action is not opposed to offshore wind as a potential source of renewable energy at a scale that would be reasonable and responsible. But in order to do that, we need to do a pilot study first. We need to understand what the consequences to marine life could be. We don't have that. We have some, references to this tiny little toy project, I call it, up off of Rhode Island, which is nothing like what is being proposed off the scope, with its 2.2 million acres of ocean, 3,500 turbines, 10,000 miles of cables. I mean, there's no comparison. So we need a pilot study to determine what are the potential causes of harm to marine life, and maybe we'll be able to avoid them or reduce them.
So that has been obviously one of the calls to action, Cindy, as you point out. Jonah, can you guess as to why they're not pausing and doing this study? Oh, I think Jonah froze a little bit there. Yep, we lost him, so he's going to come back. So Cindy,
okay,
why? So these calls, and like you said, you aren't even necessarily, your group isn't necessarily making a stand against the wind farms. Some are, but why not pause? Why not have these studies? What answers have you gotten?
Well, it's mostly been unfortunately through the media, and there's just sort of this very insistent message coming out of the federal and the state governments that that there's no way that this could be at all harmful, or there's no reason for concern. And but there's no evidence provided to that, and we would like to see the evidence. Where that's the problem. And and I just want to emphasize that this is the little stuff. This is the pre-construction, and right. The construction is going to be orders of magnitude louder, and it's going to just hammering in these massive monopiles that are as tall as a Chrysler building is going to wreak havoc to marine life. And we have multiple projects potentially going on at the same time, just like we have multiple pre-construction activities right now. There's 3-4 projects that in our little our little triangle of water here that could be going on at the same time.
Amazing.
Elizabeth, let me
Yes, go
add
ahead,
a little
Jonah.
sound bite.
Yep.
My internet must have gone bad. Just
No
a quick sound bite for you. It sounds corny, but it's actually very true. We know more about the surface of the moon and Mars than we do about the ocean floor and the ecosystem and the intricacies involved. You're messing with things that you have no right to, because you really don't know what's going to happen. We're obsessed in our country with experts. We want to talk to, only an expert can talk about the pandemic. Only an expert can talk about, whales. It's common sense. You don't need to be an expert to know that if you start paving the ocean floor with concrete, stuff that hasn't been changed in millions of years, and you plant 3,000 giant windmills the size of the Empire State Building in there with electric cables running through, and vibration and noise and odors and oil. It doesn't take a genius to know that these creatures are going to be affected and either want to go somewhere else or just die off.
And just to show the image to that, I mean, it's heartbreaking. I know you guys have been at some of these sites to see this. This particular, and again, I'm not sure which whale this is, but you can see perhaps this is the one whose skull was crushed, and once they did the work on it, and it appeared to have propeller strikes. And I think, Jonah, you said before, well, okay, so it hit a ship, but why is it hitting a ship? I mean,
a healthy whale doesn't hit a ship.
Okay? A healthy whale doesn't hit a ship. No. Really, really hard to stomach. Cindy, when we look at the shore in general, our marine life is very, very important. But there's also the human aspect of this, which is looking out and seeing these, windmills and tourism, and impacting actually the beaches because of the way that the construction is done. So the shore communities, is the outcry there as loud as it should be, in your opinion?
Well, I think, prior to the whales being washing up, very few people were aware of what's going on. I mean, I think, we've been raising concerns about the scope, the scale, the magnitude, and the speed in which these proposals have been moving forward. But I don't think people were really aware. And I think they feel that there's, something wrong with the system if they're just finding about it now. And that's unfortunate. There hasn't been a lot of public opportunity for people to engage and to be heard on this. And there are, there's the offshore consequences, and then there's onshore. We'll be needing a lot of port facilities, industrial port facilities in areas in South Jersey that, are predominantly, boaters and fishing activities and things like that. And I think, full disclosure, full transparency has just not really been the norm. And that's, I think, why there's, a lot of people now are getting angry. They're frustrated. And, so that's a significant concern that, the public just wasn't made aware of what was happening.
Right. They didn't know. Go ahead, Jonah.
Combine that, Elizabeth, with the fact that the shore towns are not occupied fully all year round. A lot of people are off in Florida. They have their places in Philadelphia or wherever. And so the word, especially during the wintertime, was very difficult to spread out to people. They hear about clean energy. Oh, okay, terrific. I'm for clean energy. Sounds good to me. I have to tell you, even the politicians down here, I went to the city councilmen of Ventnor, my city, and to discuss it with them. They had no idea. The politicians had no idea of the scope. When I showed them all the information, all our literature, what was actually happening, all they were told from Trenton was that it's for clean energy, and here's some money, because all these towns got and are still getting money from the wind companies. Ventnor got $550,000 to help them, and they're very, the way the economy is these days, they were very glad to get it, but they had no idea. Now, after talking to me and after reading up about it, now Ventnor is on board and against it, and had signed on that letter to the mayors calling for a moratorium.
Right.
But so it's education and communication. I mean, we're dropping flyers everywhere.
Yeah.
I think it's exploded now exponentially. People are talking about it. Our petition now has over 300,000 signatures. We have, between all our different groups, there are 50,000 members maybe. So the voting, the fishermen are talking about it. And I just want to say one other thing. As opposed to Cindy's group, our group is against offshore wind altogether. There's nothing green about it. There's no good going to come of it. It's going to destroy tourism. There's going to be miles wide exclusion zones around them where boaters, fishermen can't fish anymore. The price of seafood, the price of energy is going to double and triple. The climate isn't going to change one iota. And who knows what's going to happen to the ecosystem. It's a bad idea all around. If there are 100 reasons not to do it, and it turns out the whales aren't being killed by them, then there's 99 reasons not to do it.
Right. Well, it's much more complex, right, than just the whales. I think just the whales, sadly, have become the poster of it, so to speak. I just want to, before I go to you, Cindy, I want to read what Sean Latourette, the commissioner of the NJDEP, had to say about this. Now, this is the NJDEP. This is the Department of Environmental Protection. So let those words hover over this quote from Sean. From rising seas that threaten our coastline to higher temperatures that endanger the health of our most vulnerable residents, climate change is already impacting New Jersey, and we must act to reduce its adverse effects. Through the responsible development of offshore wind facilities, we can protect our aquatic and coastal resources and the communities who rely upon them, while taking bold action to address the climate crisis by reducing emissions from fossil fuel dependent energy sources. Alongside our interagency colleagues and stakeholders, the Department of Environmental Protection will play an important role in advancing this critical work in the years ahead. Now, we've heard that Jonah's group is against it. Cindy, you guys are not necessarily, but I need you to react to that statement if you could.
Well, I mean, I think that the words certainly represent, a concern for the environment, but then, why not do a pilot? Why not to determine what those environmental impacts are? Why not do a pilot project? It's just sort of, we don't have the science. We don't know what installing these kinds of massive turbines are going to cause. And so, the data just isn't there. The department is undertaking some additional research, but it's just only started in the last year or so. You can't do a half a year of study in the ocean. You need to study the ocean for some time to understand how the seasons work and the years and the cyclical. So we do need to to evaluate these things. And I think I don't know how loud it's going to be to install, hammer in a massive turbine. I don't know what those levels are going to be. Does anybody? And if you do 2 at a time, 3 at a time from 2 projects, this is going to have multiplying effects. And one of the things that hasn't been done is at all looking at the cumulative effects of all of these things. I mean, there's massive projects from Massachusetts down to South Carolina. It's not just happening here. So right. The understanding the cumulative effects, right. That has to be factored in. And, the commissioner is, reasonable and responsible, I guess, is in the eye of the beholder. But, they also haven't really been, they don't have the work done in advance of right now. They don't have it done.
We don't have answers. We need work done. We need a pause. And Jonah, I know you have something to say, but I wanted to just flip this back to you for a second. It's confusing to many people why we haven't stopped, why we haven't looked at the bigger picture, why those who are on what would be called the side of environmental protection haven't been very concerned to the point of stopping this. And whenever I get confused like that, I usually try to follow the money. Now, that's an interesting part of this because this is massive amounts of money involved. These are huge companies involved. This is a plan that's been put in place that involves so many other things. And there have been some reporting lately that Governor Murphy owns, and has a financial interest in this as well. Jonah, do we have an issue here from following the money? And is that affecting this continued work?
Well, I think there's a Pulitzer Prize for any reporter that would really take the time to dig in. Unfortunately, even the news reports are just taking the official announcements and running with them. And again, the clean energy umbrella over all of this is kind of, as Cindy said, the altar of, or you said, the altar of, we're bowing at the altar of clean energy. But think of the hypocrisy here. When you talk to somebody about the need for clean energy, oh, it's not for this generation, it's for future generations, right? Nobody in New Jersey who's alive now is going to see any change in their climate, quote unquote, from any of this. Oh, but we have to do it for future generations. Okay. Well, what did Cindy just say about the ocean? You won't know what's going to happen in the ocean for years and years and years. And by the time you find out, it might be too late. So why is it okay to potentially destroy the ocean, but not okay to wait in terms of the climate, which isn't changing anyway, okay, and isn't going to? Those words that the commissioner said were disingenuous and hypocritical. Nothing's happening in New Jersey now that has never happened before, and nobody should be afraid of it, okay? All that's happening is that these whales are dying from what you're doing. These poor, precious creatures who are, I think it's divine intervention, actually, that these came along. Like Cindy said, if they hadn't come along, nobody would be listening to us. You just don't want the view. And I have to tell you, initially, that was my concern too. When I thought these were going to be 35 miles offshore, I thought, it's far away, who cares? But as I got involved and I started finding out what was really happening, especially the lying about they're not going to be 35, they're going to be 15 and then 9 and then 8 off of Brigantine, I had to jump in and get involved, because if we don't stop it, this clean energy push, which may be being fueled by money, we don't know. It sure sounds like it, because a lot of it's floating around. Like you said, it's in the billions, it's tens of billions of dollars that are going to be given to these foreign companies to build these off our shores.
Foreign companies.
Absolutely. There's it's mind-boggling.
It's mind-boggling. So really, this show could be very long, and we could spend time on the marine life. We can spend time on that to the degree that we understand it, and that's just a huge issue. We can spend time on tourism and the effect on that. We can spend time on how ugly these things are. Let's just be honest about that. What happens when they start to rust and they no longer work? We can spend time on that. What's being done to the actual shore by bringing that in? Where's the energy going? I'm reading a lot's going to New York. So look.
And by the way, Elizabeth, to add to what you just said, these things are unprecedented. The ones that are being planned are larger than anything that's been installed anywhere in the world, and closer to shore than anywhere in the world. Nobody knows how they're going to hold up, what they're going to produce, what kind of maintenance. So it's all a big experiment in the name of, I don't know.
And we didn't even mention the birds. So look, it's huge. And I know that people listening to this will say, what about this? What about this? Yes to all of it. Yes to all of it. We don't have the answers. And there's so many issues, and we shouldn't be split on some partisan embracing or denying of climate change. Can we just not do that? Can we actually look at the real issues here? So let's give people something to do as we close this out, because I know all of us could talk about this for so long. And I want to thank both of you on behalf of New Jersey and Jersey First. We appreciate that you guys are so dedicated to this. I know, Cindy, you're probably thinking, I've been yelling about this for a while, and it took, sadly, the deaths of these whales, but whatever it takes, it's going to take. So I'm going to start with you, Cindy. Let's give people something to do. What can they do with their concern?
Well, I think people ought to do their homework. I mean, I think, while we happy to share with anyone the information that Clean Ocean Action has been developing over the years, but I think people really should look into this themselves. And I really want to emphasize something that you said, that this is a nonpartisan issue. The ocean is something that we all enjoy, that we've all worked so hard over decades to bring back. I mean, I don't know if any of your listeners remember, but we were the ocean dumping capital of the world. We had going to the beach meant, tar balls on our feet, and we all worked very hard. Thousands of people, parties, both sides of the aisle were working. Everybody worked hard, and we brought our ocean back from the brink. And it's now something that we can all enjoy. And when we go in the ocean, we can see our toes instead of, the murky waters that we used to have to put up with. And the marine life is back. And so we do have, it is very important that people do their own homework, do your own research. But the other thing that people really need to do is to make their voices heard. And there's lots of ways that people can do that. I really want to emphasize too that climate change is real, and it's all because we've been misusing all our the many resources on this planet. And everyone can help by doing the fastest, cheapest, safest, easiest thing, which is reducing their energy use. And we can all do that. Very easily. There's lots of guides out there for how to do that, and it puts more money in our own wallets as well. So, that's what I would suggest. And this is going to be for the long haul. So stay involved.
And Cindy, what is your website?
It's cleanoceanaction.org.
Okay, thank you. And Jonah, what can people do?
Sign petitions. We have a petition on ours. That's another way to make your voice heard. Share, tell your neighbors, tell everybody you can. Find ways of sharing it. I've been giving our flyers out to various stores in the area where I know 90% of the population around here is going to visit. So I've been doing that. I get very good reception from the store owners. They're all in support of it. Go to rallies. Show. One thing politicians don't want to do is be on the wrong side of their constituents. And that's why you see all these politicians jumping on board now, because they're realizing that, hey, everybody's behind them. And if they ever run for office again, they'll do very well. But Murphy, who wants to run for president someday, is going to be sadly surprised when he does, because people in New Jersey are going to rise up and say, look what he did to here. This is what he's trying to do anyway. This is what he's going to do to the rest of the country. So all these politicians, Jeff Van Drew, I started writing to politicians. I found out who my local politicians were and wrote to them. I went to meet them. Palestina met with us, and after meeting with us, came out against the whales 4 days later. Against the wind all 4 days later. So there's a lot you can do. I know I'm retired. People are working. They don't have the time. But just writing emails, continually calling the governor's office, be as loud as you can.
And Jonah, where is your petition?
It's on our website, protectourcoastnj.org.
Okay. Great. All right. Well, I want to thank both of you. And I just want to remind everybody, this isn't just about the shore. So if you don't live on the shore, you should care about this. This is the future for our children. And it's not just New Jersey. And it's not a partisan issue. It makes no sense that this is a partisan issue, everybody. So let's pull together and reach out to your legislators. You can send them emails. You can post online. Let them know. And in many cases, they may not even realize it. I think they're waking up, as Cindy and Jonah have both said. Sadly, the whale deaths have caused people to wake up, but they didn't even realize what's been approved and coming down the path. So we're all waking up now. And whenever that happens, you need to do something with it. So we encourage you to reach out. Let's pull together on, let's just let this be something where everybody is together, right? No one should be on the other side of this issue. So thank you to you both. Appreciate what you're doing. We will be watching this. We will be active. We hope to have you back with good news at some point that cooler heads have prevailed. And finally get government to work for the people. That's always encouraging when that happens. So we're praying that it does. Cindy and Jonah, thank you so very much.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
And to my audience, guys, we'll see you next week.